I'd like to invite our next speaker is Kyei Amoako, and I'm sure that I pronounced that very well. So Kyei is an author and a communication consultant. He helps leaders communicate. He was born in Accra, Ghana, and educated in Ghana and in the United States of America. Kyei obtained his undergraduate degree in accounting from Kyei University and a graduate degree in marketing and communications from Franklin University. He's managed communications, authored memoirs, and led marketing campaigns for leaders and organizations across the USA and in Ghana. He connects people to opportunities, helps teams solve problems, and coaches people towards accomplishing goals. Kyei likes music, he loves playing with new technology, and has imagined himself playing in a band. He believes that there's enough of everything for anyone who has a plan and commits to practicing the process. With a warm round of applause, please welcome Kyei tonight.
All right. You did an excellent job, Kumbi. So thanks, everybody. And thanks, Vite and Tolu. Excellent, excellent tips. And I hope you guys were taking notes, because I see, Kumbi, you were taking notes like you have an exam tomorrow. And I encourage everybody else to take as much notes, because this is really, really helpful tips for life. Vite said it, that we are all interviewing as we go through life in a lot of interactions. And so all these skills transfer. So I grew up in Ghana, went to college in the US. I lived in the US for most of my time, part of my time in Ghana. So a lot of the examples and the experiences that I draw from in telling the stories that I'm telling are from the US, but it applies anywhere and everywhere. I currently work for a bank, JP Morgan Chase, here in the US. I live in Ohio. I also consult for leaders in Ghana and the US. I coach young people, and I coach also adults, people trying to do different things. And I'm connected to Come Study International. That's an organization that helps students who are trying to advance their education and study abroad. And in all of these endeavors, I am either interviewing people at one point or the other, or people are interviewing me at one point or the other. So I tend to see interviews come about from both sides, as an interviewer and as an interviewee. And everything that Vite and Tolu said applies, whether you are an interviewer or interviewee, because you have to understand who your audience is. You have to speak to what the goals are and what's happening. Now, before I go further, I want to insert a little bit of interactivity into this. So I'm going to share a screen, and I would encourage you, if you have a smartphone, take it out. If you have a smartphone, take it out, and I'm sharing a screen. If you would kindly take out your smartphone. I have 5 questions. I just want to go through these, just a way to check the pulse, right? Just get a sense of how people think about certain things. And it just helps us all understand where we are. And then I could speak to some of the responses. Now, if you don't have a phone, that's okay. Those who have phones can pull it out, use your camera and point it to the QR code. It will take you to poll everywhere. It will take you to poll everywhere. And if you're on the internet somewhere, you could type in pollev.com/KYEIMOAKO929, and you'll still be able to get to it. So I'm going to give it a minute. And once you go there, just complete the poll as you see it. So this is a test. So I have 5 questions of this, but just click on it and your responses should start showing up. Okay, we have responses coming in. All right. Okay, let's do it. For most people, the day is going great. Awesome. All right. Fantastic. All right. So, there's a couple people who's just having a great, this is just the best day, and there's nobody whose day is dragging or who says, I don't want to know. So this is great. This is great. All right. This was just a test just to get a sense of if everybody can access it. So here we go. I'm going to go to the first question. So go ahead and tell me the purpose of an interview is what? For an employer to learn about the candidate and how he or she fits the role. For the candidate to learn more about the employer and the role, both, or something else. I'll just give it a brief moment for folks to respond to that. Again, you've heard Tolu and Bite say, share thoughts here. Some of you might have very strong opinions about how things ought to be, and that's okay. Want to make sure we make room for all of that. All right. And then when I speak, I share 5 points after this, and those points will speak to the responses over here. So for most people on this call, the consensus is the interview is for the employer to learn about the candidate and how he or she fits the role, and for the candidate to also learn about the employer. And by the way, I'm using employment as the context here, but you could apply this to an interview for admission into a school program, admission into to get a visa. All of these things, just you could adjust the context to fit. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question. Thank you very much. We're going to go to second question. And it says, an impressive resume is often enough for a successful interview. All right. Looks like most people disagree with that. They say that's false. Just giving it another quick moment, and then we will. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on to the next question. Who should speak more during an interview? The interviewee or the interviewer? Giving it 10 more seconds, and then we will move on. So majority say it's the interviewee that needs to speak more. We have a 9-to-1 ratio on that, okay? 90% say the interviewee should be doing more of the talking. All right. I'm gonna move on to the next question. All right. The best place to get information about a company is the company's website, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of the above at the interview. Now, these are not trick questions, so just feel free. All right. So many people are saying it's all of the above. There's a good chunk that say company's website. A few people are saying that at the interview. All right. Okay. So looks like all of the above is definitely leading the pack. And a lot of people are switching their answers to company's website. I like that. You're free to change your mind. All right. We're going to move on to the next question. Thank you. Oh, look at that. The numbers keep changing. All right. So all of the above, but a lot of people strongly believe that a company's website. Good. We'll speak about that in a moment. The next question. All right. Now let's see. And this question is dedicated to Tolu. Oh, how you dress and act should not matter if you have the best qualification. And most people are saying, yep, it shouldn't matter. But somebody said true and they changed their mind. So that's okay. All right. I think that's it. All right. So thank you very much for engaging here. I'm going to switch to a different screen and share some thoughts over there. Now, all the answers that were given are good answers, because a lot of these things depends, right? Sometimes it shifts a little bit depending on the context. So I'm going to share some things that I think apply to all interviews, and hopefully we get answers from that, and I'll share some specific stories when it gets to the panel conversation. But I would definitely say to everybody here that an interview is a conversation. That's what Bitty said. It's not a trial, it's a conversation. So let me set up a bigger context here. We have young people on the call, so let me just say this. A lot of these things apply when you are trying to assess the opposite sex or another person for a relationship. It's an interview. A lot of what you're learning here will apply over there. So smile if you're smiling, because an interview needs to be a two-way conversation. It's as much about you getting information about the job and the people you're going to work with as it is you telling about them. So it's not a drill. They're not just here to pull things out of you. You get to weigh in. Number two, one thing to know about interviews: research, practice, prepare. Tolu talked about that. Bite talked about that. There is no substitute for preparation. If you show up and you don't know anything about the job or the company, and you are asking the employer, tell me about this company and what you guys do here, now that is definitely going to go against you, because it just shows that you are not prepared. Third thing, tell your story. Share who you are, what you do, and the value you will provide. We are all storytellers. Everything we're doing, we are telling a story somewhere. We are communicating something to people. If you show up with a resume and your resume is stellar, well, that tells about your past. It tells about everything you've done up until this point. What the interviewer wants to know is, now you're here. Talk to me. Let's have a conversation. Forget about what people said about you on your resume. I want you to talk to me and tell me how you're going to fit this role and help me solve problems. Number 4, listen as well as you speak. I asked a question about who should speak more on the interview, and there was a very big tilt towards the interviewee has to speak more. But it's a conversation. Again, take it back to the analogy of being on a date with somebody. If you're the one doing all the talking, she might be looking at you, or he might be looking at you as like, I don't know if this person is even self-aware. It's about knowing the context of what you're talking about and being concise with your answers. Now, if the interviewer just asks questions and they are not talking, well, you should find a way to probe. Like Tolu said, does my answer fit what you're looking for? Do you want me to tell you more? Use some questions and techniques like that to make sure that you're not doing all the talking, but it's a balance of you speaking confidently and also pausing and letting the interviewer be able to comment on your questions or ask questions. And then number 5, mind your brand. I know Tolu's suggestion about the braids is controversial, and depending on where you live in the world, you might argue certain things. If you live in America, you could walk into an interview and twist your hair anyway, because if they don't give you the job for your braids, you're probably going to sue them. But if you live in Ghana or Nigeria, well, there are 75 people trying to get that one position. Do you want to put yourself in a position where somebody can hurt you? Well, you could probably still wear your braids or your dreads, but you could present it in a way that shows that, hey, it's a style thing, but you are still responsible. So again, you're minimizing the possibility for someone to use that against you. So your brand matters. And my young friends, social media is hot, right? Everybody's on social media, but everything you're doing on social media, that's a reflection of you. So when you go into an interview, it's not just you being there. Somebody's going to Google you. Somebody's going to find you on Instagram, on Google, and then you show up super well dressed, clean cut, and on Instagram you're insulting everybody using middle finger and doing all kinds of things, and you think you crushed the interview and you don't know why you didn't get the job. They saw some things about you on the internet that weren't flattering, because again, your brand is everything. Just want to wrap up with a few things here because we're going to come back out. I'm putting my information on the screen. You could take a picture of it. If you want to connect, if you want to chat, happy to chat. We'll chat some more. And I'm also including information about Come Study International on here. If you want to follow us on Instagram, please do that. If you want to reach out to us by phone, please do that. And what we do with my partner, Adeleye, we help unlock possibilities for people who are trying to study abroad. So, turn it back to the presenter.
Thank you so much, Kyei. I love that bit about what you do on social media. I can come back
please,
to that.
the number of the Come Study International again, please.
Yes, we will share that. They want the number. So maybe you can still put that on the screen for a minute so that they can get that. And then we will share it with all the people that have attended this session. Absolutely brilliant. I love your use of the polls and the interactive session that we've had. And it's really a two-way street. You took that dating bit out of my mouth. I was going to talk about it. So you're talking to someone you like. Actually, you're being interviewed and you are also interviewing them. So like I said, it works for every situation in life. You're always selling yourself. Thank you so much, Kyei. That was really awesome. One of the speakers had mentioned, and I think it was Kyei, about the social media presence. So now we've learned that in the future, when you're going for interviews, people will Google you. Generally, when you meet someone, they will Google you. What happens to the footprint that I have left? How am I going to get it out? You know, that is something that bothers me because sometimes the information is not put out by me, it's put out by a friend. So how would you address that if I have concerns in terms of my social media footprint?
So the way I would go about it is when we are done with this presentation, each of us should just Google ourselves, see what comes up, right? Just do a quick inventory. Because if there are things out there that are not very reflective of your brand, then you could take the steps to try to address it. If there's nothing out there that's hurtful of your brand, then just make sure going forward, you're mindful about what you put out there, number one. You're also mindful about the company you keep, because you might not be the one that posts it, but it's the guy next to you or the girl next to you that records and posts it, and then somebody spots you in that video. So being mindful of the company you keep. Now, if there's something out there that's terrible about you, you can't worry too much about the past. There are things you could do to probably ask it to be taken down, but most of what's in your control is what's ahead, right? So if it's something that you posted yourself, take it down. If somebody posted it, ask them to take it down. If they say they're not going to take it down, move on. And make sure you learn from that lesson. And then in future actions, be mindful of what you say in the comment section of somebody's posts. Don't get into an argument and start insulting people, because that's content that traces back to you. What you post in terms of pictures. And just make a conscious effort that everything that you're putting on the internet is part of what you want to be known as, or you want to be known by. There are things that I will post on Instagram that I will not post on LinkedIn, because I'm speaking to different groups of people in these platforms. I am not on Snapchat because I don't really understand Snapchat. When I understand it, I'll spend more time over there, but I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. Facebook is sometimes even too much talking on Facebook that I can't stand. Or there's too much temptation for me to get into an argument on Facebook, so I don't. So again, knowing your environment, being mindful of what you post going forward, and the guidance here is not for you to refrain. Like, oh, I don't do social media because I don't want something to happen. No, you could engage, but just be mindful. And if something were to happen that is not reflective of your brand, take effort to try to take it down.
Thank you so much for that response. So you're not totally helpless. There are things that you can do, but I love the fact that you said, look forward. Thank you. So we'll hear from Tayo. Tayo, your hand is up. Could you unmute?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to all our speakers and the moderators. It's been an amazing session. So I have a number of questions, well, just 3 questions and a comment for Mr. Adegbite Falade, well, and Mr. Lay as well. So my first question is, everybody understands, or well, not everybody, well, most people on here already in the job market, and the market is overly saturated now. So from your perspective, how do you stand out as an interviewee? Because, okay, well, I'm a law student, and every year the Nigerian Bar Association releases more than 5,000 students, and there are 10 tier 1 law firms in the country. And like you said, there are a lot of people that are very smart, and half of these people have a first-class degree. And unfortunately or fortunately in Nigeria, most companies would use your CV or your resume as a filter, so to say. So most times you never, if you don't hold a first-class degree, most times you're not even able to advance to the interview stage. But if you do, how then do you stand out, especially if you don't have a first-class degree? Then my second question is, when you're asked to introduce yourself and to speak about your interests, do you localize those interests to the job role, to the job description, or to the company's vision and mission, so to say? So for example, if I'm applying to NDP, for example, do I talk about how I, like to go to the gas plant in my area? Or, just do I make myself a different person, or not completely, but do I shape myself to this job role or job description? Then the third question is, there's sort of taboo around salary in Nigeria. You should not speak about your salary generally. But is that something that you can ask at the end of an interview? Because in Nigeria, especially if you're just heading into the job market, so as an associate, for example, you never know. Sometimes there's never even equal pay and equal base pay. So everybody's just earning something else, something different. So can you ask about salary? And then my comment is to Mr. Lay and Mr. Adegbite, because both of you work in the energy industry, and that's something I'm very interested in. Well, specifically to Mr. Adegbite, I see that NDP was something I've studied and did some projects on, and I see that Ogbele, the Ogbele plant was given an award far back for trying to eliminate gas flaring in the country, which is illegal, is a crime, but then the penalty is very almost insignificant, basically. So I want to just commend the company, obviously, since you're the group MD and CEO, but please ask that more is done, especially because the whole of Nigeria basically survives on this part, most of the South, and most of those places are basically inhabitable because of the damage that has been caused by these problems, gas flaring, crude oil exploration, and also other things. So yes, a request and a commendation. Thank you very much.
Adetutu, sorry, Tayo. I don't know what your full name is, but Mr. Adegbite Falade, you have a candidate on your hands right now. She's talked about gas flaring and issues that you have to answer to. But just to summarize, she said, how do you stand out? How are you going to stand out as an interviewer? And then anonymous, mute, please. Yes, we heard you. Yes, please mute. Thank you. So she wants to know, do I tell them what my real interests are, or do I tailor my interests to whatever the function of the organization is? And then salary, a taboo or a goal? Over to you, Mr. Adegbite Falade.
All right. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm the one being interviewed now. So let me start by first acknowledging the commendation that you gave. Thank you very much. We are committed in our operations to cutting out flares as a responsible operator, and we achieved that. So we've eliminated what is called routine flaring of gas. I heard you loud and clear about what you call the skill of the land. In Nigeria today, there are just so many persons who are out there that are qualified, but the number of job vacancies are very few. We have so many talented guys. Let me blow your mind a bit. I'm just going through the motion of recruiting graduate trainees for my company now. And the criteria that I set out was very clear. I handed over the job to a recruiting agency, and I just said, it's graduate trainees that I want. I need people who are not more than 3 years of leaving school, second class, upper and above. And the advert was out for 3 weeks. Within those 3 weeks, we got over 30,000 applications. And I was just going to employ 20 persons. Out of that, over 30,000, 700 of them had first class. So how do you start? As employers of labor, we've come to recognize that you're having a first class and all of that is great, but it's not the only indicator of your capacity. So if you didn't make it first class, please don't kill yourself. Wise and knowledgeable employers of labor have a combination of assessment processes that help to bring out folks. So I'm down to, by the time I came down to my last 125, the list probably had more persons with 2-1 than those persons that had a first class. And a lot of what we talked about today then came into being, because it's not just the written test, there was the assessment center, people were given an opportunity to speak. Now, somebody may not have made a first class, could have made a second class lower, but the person is talented, the person is involved in speaking, the person is involved in sports. You see all those things coming to give a more rounded view. And so how do you stand out? You need to be a person of many parts. It needs to come out clearly. And I love the way one of the co-speakers said, in introducing yourself, speak to your areas of strength. By the time it comes out that you not only nailed it with respect to your academics, you are very good with music, you're a sports person, you've got some other skill sets, it changes the perspective and the coloration around you. It just says this person is able to juggle so many things. So that's one way. But even that said, it's not everybody that will always start off with a dream job. And for too many persons, they believe, except I get the dream job as my first job, I haven't gotten a job. That's a big fallacy. Take whatever you get, whatever comes out first, please grab it and start building your experience. Now, I've come across in interviews before, and I've interviewed folks who, for example, made a first class, but they were very snobbish. They were snobbish with the job offers that they came. They believed those job offers were beneath them, and they didn't take it. And then time started passing. By the time they got to the right job, and the right job was going to employ them, there was a gap in their CV. And that gap is, what were you doing if you are this good in the last 2-3 years that you were idle? Meanwhile, the person who made a second class lower or a second class upper, who took the job that was available and used that to build an experience profile, they stood out very well. So you may not have stood out with respect to your academic qualification, but with what you do, you can stand out. And guess what? It doesn't matter, for example, in the energy space, whether you made 2 years of experience working for Shell versus you made 2 years of experience working for Econoy. What they look at the end of the day is the quality of the years of experience and what you did in between. So please do that. The second thing I would say is that whatever you choose to do, please put a stamp of authority on it by becoming certificated. So for example, if you're a lawyer and you're in dispute resolution, please don't just go and do dispute resolution. Find the industry benchmark certifications that showcases you that validates and put a stamp of, a seal on your experience as an arbitrator, for example. So when you get to the points of interview, you are not only speaking to what you've done, you also have something that is internationally recognized and has certified you. And those are some of the things that stand you out. The third thing that stands you out is this, and I keep saying this to folks: the first help you need is to get the first job. Every subsequent job, you don't need a help on it. You must so prove yourself to be the subject matter expert, to be the reference point in that job, that it is the performance and the profile you build for yourself there that recommends you to the next job. So those are some ways by which you could stand out. You may not be standing out working first for an NDP or working for an ExxonMobil. It may be standing out working for a smaller profile company. But build yourself and wait for your chance. A day will come. It might be at a conference. It may not even be an interview that you have interviewed for a job. The funny thing is, too many people interview without realizing they're interviewing. They ask you to come and deliver a paper, or they ask you, you're in a session just offhand, there are issues, and you stand up to make a contribution. The perspective you bring in, the breadth that you cover in itself is an interview. After that episode, somebody will be asking, who is that guy? I think that guy will be good for us. So these are some ways that you can stand out. But please be the best of yourself, be the best you can. Continue to push the boundary of your knowledge and experience canvas, and wait for your opportunity. It will surely come. Thank you. Then the last question, pay. Let me say this. There is a moment to talk about pay. Wait till when you have been ascertained to be the candidate. Then discuss pay. Discussing pay and asking about pay when they've not even communicated that you are the right guy, maybe a turn off. So leave that pay matter. You see, when you are so good, you can command and dictate what to do. So nobody can shortchange you. The issue is, are you good enough? And you can never be too good that somebody is not willing to afford what you've built into yourself. I'll pause on that. I think Claire wants to say something.
Yes, just to add to that, there is also something Tayo said about, and is with respect to the statistics you shared with her. And that statistics is actually not NDP alone. I remember in my last role in NLNG, we wanted to recruit graduates, and we had about 25,000 people that apply. There is a high degree of self-confidence that you must have when you go into interview. Please don't get overwhelmed by statistics. It's something around, by the time they first consider those who are first class, how would they even start? They probably will even look at those that have lower qualifications. And we have addressed that. But if you allow that to be at the back of your mind, you won't show up well in your engagement. So you need to have self-belief. Believe in yourself, believe in your capability. It's not arrogance. Please don't mistake what I'm saying. It's just being confident about it, because all of that plays into your own response, which is being evaluated. Why would they pick the other person and they will not pick you? If the other person is communicating with much more confidence, more articulated than you, there is no chance that they will even look at you. On paper, any one of you can do the job. By the time you get to that stage, any one of you can do that job. But what are those extra things? You don't want in your own conversation to be the one that is providing the ammunition where you are not picked up. So go in with self-confidence. It doesn't matter the number of people. This job is mine. It's in my hand. It's down to how I've prepared for it. It's down to how I show up. And I will show up. I will give them a headache in terms of selection. It's up to you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Mr. Falade. Give them headache. Show up and be extremely confident. And there's one question that Tayo asked that was not addressed. She said, do you talk about your real interest or do you play to the gallery? But we have other questions, other people's hands up. In the interest of time, I will not do my usual summary, but there are a lot of things in there. I love it. Become a subject matter expert. Be confident, become certified. You don't just show up with the mouth only. Get the degree, get the certification. And not everyone, very powerful sharing, Mr. Falade. I love what you said. Your dream job, the first job may not be your dream job, but just make sure that you're doing something. I really love that. So let's quickly take, I saw Tutu's hand up. I saw Sheung and then Kiton. So we'll take it in that order.
Before we go on, I just want to tag two quick things on to the standing out thing, because I think that's a very important thing, because the numbers can be intimidating. And I think it's important to echo the facts that what Bitte and Lei said, that you don't want to sell yourself short. Two things that you could do to make sure you're standing out, because standing out doesn't end after you get the job. You're going to have to stand out after you get in the job, because there's always going to be an opportunity for you to move forward. So standing out is not just going into the door. Number two, one thing you could do to stand out is to be a self-starter, right? Don't wait till you have a job before you start practicing the things that you're learning. So if you are a law student, what are you going to do whilst you're in school so that you're demonstrating that you have what it takes, so that when you're applying with people who are first class but haven't done a work in their lives, you can stand out because you went to that local church and you help people using your skills. That's how you stand out. If you have a blog where you are writing and you are communicating your ideas, you can show that as proof of, hey, this is how I think I've done something. Specific things you could do to stand out. Don't wait and think your certificate is the only way you're gonna stand out. You will be disappointed that way. You have to do something as a self-starter. You got to go out there, volunteer. There are enough problems around the world that you could solve a problem and you could prove to your potential employer that you don't even have to ask me. I'm going to get out there and make things happen. And they're like, come on in.
Well, thank you so much for that. Yes, be a self-starter. Do what you need to do, not just when you get the job. And I see some comments from Tolu, volunteer work. So yeah, and Faye says explore networking opportunities too. All right, let's hear from Sheung. Then we'll take Kiton and Sophia.
My question is, if you're
Your question is what? We didn't hear that.
Good afternoon. So if you're in an interview and
Sheung, sorry, may I ask that you switch on your video if you want to ask a question? Let's all switch on our videos, but please, we'd like to see you, Sheung. Okay, so whilst we're waiting for you, perfect.
Good afternoon. Sorry about that.
That's
If you're in an interview and they ask you a question that you find it hard to answer, how do you navigate from that question and not look like you're unprepared for the interview?
That's a really brilliant question. Thank you. Can we take one more question so that we can take answers together? Kiton, I see Kiton's hand up. Okay, if Kiton is not ready, can we do? Okay, good evening, Kiton. Go ahead.
Yeah, so how do I sell myself in a document?
We can't see you. Would you kindly put on your video? Same goes for anyone that wants to talk. Nice to see you, Kiton.
Nice to see you too. How do I sell myself in a document to get into a university? And what are schools looking for in a student?
Thank you, Kito. So can we take answers to those two questions first? If you're in a difficult situation, how do you navigate yourself out? And how do I sell myself when looking for a placement in a university, when I'm applying for a university?
Okay, can I just take a stab very quickly?
Okay.
I think one of the things we probably may not have said, but which can be inferred in all that we have been saying is that at interviews, be authentic. You need to be very authentic. And that authenticity means you come across as honest and as credible. You could get to some questions where you are not really sure. It's okay to ask them to repeat that question. First, to test that you understand, or to give you time to think through your answer. And in the event that it's still something that is outside of your area of knowledge, it is okay to say, you know what, I do not really understand, or I can't respond to this, and try and explain how else you see it. You see, that authenticity in itself is a breath of fresh air, and not a few persons on the interview panel will score you very high. So saying that I do not know it, or this is how much I know up to, is in itself a valid answer. Then if you are, the second question around how do I get myself eligible for admission into a university? Even admission into a university or an institution of learning is going beyond usually just looking at your academic scores. That's not to say your academic scores should not be okay, but it's a combination of your academic score, your references, and other things that you bring into it. Now, one powerful thing you could do is research the school. Most schools, go to their website and they will show you the class of, so if you're trying to get admission for 2024, look at the profile of the class of students of 2023. They will give you a small biography of each one of them. As you look through, you begin to see what seems like a recurring decimal for each one of them, and what probably seems like what is absent in your own profile. For some, you are targeting an Ivy League school. It tells you, oh, this candidate can speak 4 languages. This candidate he plays 3 different musical instruments. He's a sportsman, and so on and so forth. Those things help. Then in advance, don't wait till when it is time for you to apply. When you are, for example, in your year 1 or year 2 or year 3, start looking ahead and say, what is the profile of the kind of people they are admitting to this school, so that you can make the necessary adjustments. That would help. Thank you.
I want to tag on to that. The first question about navigating difficult questions. Again, it's a conversation. And if you're in a conversation and somebody asks you a question, you don't know it, you can handle it tactfully, right? By saying, I'm not really sure about the answer to that. Or, that's an interesting question. Let me think about it. Like, that's how you react if it's a conversation. But if you think it's a trial, then the moment you don't know the question, you start like, breaking down. It's like, oh, I'm going to get this one wrong. And so remember, it's a conversation. Because sometimes when you ask a difficult question, you can ask a clarifying question to help you think through what they're trying to ask. Because they may ask you a question, you might thinking, this is what they're asking, but then you say, well, I think I have an idea. Could you tell me a little bit more about what context you're referring to this in? And then they start explaining things like, oh, now I know what you're talking about. So it's a conversation, and you can ask questions so they could clarify it, and you don't have to panic. And if you don't know it, it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know it, but can I get back to you on that? And then you could go back and research, send them an email and say, well, I did some research and here's what I think. Now that what seemed like was going to be a disadvantage, you could turn it into an advantage because you said, can I come back to you? And they're like, sure. And you went, you researched, and then you came back with an answer. That's how people behave at work. If I'm working for Gbite and he asked me a question, I don't have an answer, that's what I would say. I would say, let me get back to you on that. And I'll go research and get back to him on that. So if I demonstrate that in an interview, he's going to say, that guy can work for me. Switching to selling yourself when you're applying for school. Again, there's competition. There's competition. There's not only competition for admission. There's competition for scholarships. There's competition for getting into the right programs. And so whether you like it or not, you're going to have to sell yourself. if you want some of the finest education that's out there. Bitte said it, academics is important, reference is important, but it all starts with planning and doing things early. All of you on this call are doing something that's putting you in the best position, right? Because you're seeking information and you're getting yourself in a position to say, hey, what do I need to know? What do I need to do? Now, one specific thing that many people can start doing now is writing your personal statement. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And what problem in the world are you trying to help solve, right? And every school wants to know that. Every school wants to, because if you have all the money in the world, you can't help solve problems. People don't really want to bring you into their schools. Now, the things that you're going to write in your personal statements have to be true and authentic. So if you want to solve world hunger, what are you doing now that could say, hey, I did a project to raise money to help people who are hungry? There's not a reason for you to write a personal statement that you can't demonstrate that you did something, which goes back to the earlier point that we answered about being a self-starter. If you haven't volunteered, if you haven't helped other people, if you haven't solved a small problem for your community, now is the time to start, because you're going to need something like that in your personal statement for you to be competitive. And at Come Study International, we work with a lot of students who will come in and they're like in their final year and they're trying to make things up. They're trying to create things, and you ask them questions. So tell me more about this. And then they start like, well, they are trying to fabricate things. And when a school sees that you're fabricating things just to think, just to convince them, immediately your deception could get you disqualified. So start now. And there's so many problems you could help solve in your community, in your church. Ask family members. There's always something that you could do to help people that could come back to help sell you.
Powerful words. Volunteer. Start
Thank
now.
you. So let me
Start
just
early.
jump in quickly
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I'll speak when you're done. I'll speak when you're done. Are you done?
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. So I just saw in the chat box that Keaton asked how to sell yourself in a document. I assume that document will be your CV, especially for university admission. And I'm going to latch on Kay's comments just now. So, what else have you done? Have you done some volunteering work? And this could be teaching in church. It could be, giving some time to motherless babies' homes to go and teach them, in class. It could be putting your old books together to drop, at maybe motherless babies' homes, or, just some kind of social responsibility. It could be playing the guitar in church, or, other activities that you're into, that could serve, that maybe some other people have. And this is the time to start building that dossier up now. This is the time to start doing that. So I have a friend whose daughter just got admitted into an Ivy League school in the university. And I just, out of curiosity, I said, oh, so what did you do, differently? Oh, she said, oh, from when she was a little bit younger, she had enrolled her in a school to go and learn how to make hair. She used to take her to less privileged homes to teach during the weekend, during the holiday, and little stuff like that. She learned how to play the piano, So those were some of the things that she put in her CV, in her dossier, when she was applying to the school and she was considered, for admission. So those are some of the things that you can do, Kito, that would make you stand out, that will make you top of mind when you're applying into schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tolu. Let's move on and take a couple more questions. Yes, I know that this session is really targeted at the young people, but again, people like me with over 25 years of work experience, we also want to know if I'm going into a new job, if I'm going into maybe applying for a senior management program and I have to do a paper, what exactly are those things that they would like to see? So we'll come back to us. Let's hear from Sophia Oke. Then we would hear from Toba and Timmy in that order. Sophia, please ask your question and please put on your video so we can see you.
Good evening. My question is, how do you sell yourself without sounding too arrogant or cocky about yourself? Thank you.
Nice one. Be bold, but not fierce. Okay, Toba, can we hear from you? So we'll take the answers together.
Good evening. So my question
evening,
is,
Toba.
if as the interviewee and the interviewer says something that goes against your beliefs, how do you react after? Do you stand by your beliefs or you go with what he or she says?
That's a really interesting question, Toba.
Great questions. Great question.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and start with the first one and then touch on the second one and other panelists could jump in?
Okay.
So there's something about modesty that as Africans, we're trained to be modest, right? And we don't talk about ourselves to the point that sometimes it borders on being timid or coming across as timid. There's the other extreme too, where sometimes we overcompensate, right? Where sometimes people feel like more is better. But the answer is somewhere in the middle, right? Which is based on knowing your audience, right? Because if you're talking to people who want you to be confident because the job that you're required to do wants you to talk more about yourself, and that audience wants to know more, not telling them more can work against you. And sometimes it might be just a preliminary interview and they just need very basic top level questions and answers. And then you probably run on, and then people think you're talking too much. So knowing your audience is important. And so if you're presenting, for example, a CV or a statement of purpose to people, it's helpful to do some research to understand what are they looking for, right? What are they looking for so that you don't overdress or underdress, right? To use an analogy we used earlier on, because you might overdress for a certain situation, whereas that same situation, that same information would have been a good fit for another one. So know your audience. Who are you talking to? Because you don't do just one resume and send it to every employer. Depending on the job you're applying for, you might need to adjust your resume because they probably don't care about certain things on your resume. But some people might care. So doing a little bit of research and talking to people you trust. You're on this call, you know Tolu is in HR. Giving her a call and say, hey, I'm applying for this job. Can you look over my resume or my statement to see if I'm thinking about things correctly? That could help you trim things. If you're honest with what's on there, chances are it's going to be okay. But leverage people around you to make sure you are thinking about your audience appropriately so that you're not overselling yourself or underselling yourself. And Toba's question was, if you are in an interview and you don't agree with what the interviewer said, I would say, again, know your audience. If the person says something that you can move on without commenting on, move on without commenting on, because that's not probably the right forum for you to challenge them. Now, if they said something totally disrespectful, well, that's probably a signal to you that you don't want to work there. But you want to pick your battles because chances are he's coming in from a place of authority. And if he comments, for example, about your look and it's wrong, you could probably say, I don't think that's a very appropriate thing to say, right? And respectfully respond to it. But that's about how far I will go in commenting about something. And it's also, I don't think the other side is also appropriate as somebody says something very demeaning, like you're a woman. you go into an interview and then the interviewer start making inappropriate gestures to you, you're not supposed to just take it. You should be able to say, sir, I don't appreciate that. Could we focus on why we're here? And if you feel like they're going over the line, you should be able to, walk out and appropriately protest it. But there's a certain dance that you need to do by understanding your audience, the context, and picking and choosing your actions thoughtfully.
Okay, if I can just jump in right behind you, okay, thanks for that. Back to Sophia, I guess I got that right. There is a very simple framework that you can use to introduce yourself and hopefully does not make it come across as arrogant. It's the letters, it's called EESC. EESC. If I'm given the opportunity to talk about myself, the first thing is I talk about my education. That's the first E. And if you listen to the bio that was read to you by Kumbi, you would see some semblance of that. We talk about education. This is me. I went to this school. This is what I read and all of that. And then after that, you talk about your employment. If you are somebody who is looking for a job, I've worked in this place, I have this kind of experience and all of that. And then the third thing is talk about the skill set that you bring into the role. But the last thing, which you then talk about, is your character. Who are you? What do you stand for? So if you just keep that at the back of your mind, it helps you to stay focused on talking about yourself, the things that are relevant, the things that will not make you come across as grandstanding, but you're focusing on, I am this person, this is my education, and you don't say, let me talk about education, but you use it as a guide, framework at the back of your mind in order to guide your own response in terms of how you handle that. Toba, I think the only thing I will add to what Kyei has said is that we do come up, not just in the interview, at work with people who share views that are different from ours, some of them very senior. And like you rightly said, not all of them deserve response, but there are some of them that you can't run away from. And you have to come to a point where you ask yourself, to what extent is my response an issue on this? Is this an issue that has to do with a fundamental view that I hold, that I've considered as a principle? Every organization talks about their values, and as individuals, we also have our own values. Is this a statement? Is this a view that runs contrary to my value? There are other things I can flex on, but if it is one that is about value, perhaps that's one, like Kyei said, is giving you an indication you're in the wrong place. So if somebody is asking me to make a statement about things that has to do with honesty, something that has to do with integrity, something that has to do with respect for people, those are core values that each one of us must espouse. Any organization that is asking you to undermine that, please be careful of such an organization. It's not one that would last. Now, on those ones, if I have to, I will be clear where I stand, but I also must not be coming across in a way that I then tell the individual, you don't know what you're talking about. State your views, state where you stand with respect to the issue, and be willing to move on. It's not a debate, but it's one that is clear where you stand. Some of those questions are not being asked sometimes in order to see whether you agree or not. Some of them could actually be testing you and testing your value system. So just keep an open mind as you respond, but be very clear. Who am I? What will I accept? What will I not accept? As a saying we have, and I know they have it in the different culture, but for us in the Yoruba language, we say what you will not accept as a rich man. You start rejecting it when you are poor. It's not when you become rich, you say, okay, I learn how I will. No. It shows. I said, you can't be a lizard in Lagos, and then you get to London, you think you become an alligator. It won't happen. Who are you? You need to sort that out first. You need to settle that and let that define you as you come to crossroads of dilemma. How will you respond? If you don't have those core values to guide you, you'll be confused. You'll be who you really don't want to be. Okay, thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I love that.
Thank
Know
you.
who
Let me
you
just
are.
add quickly to that too. So,
Okay. Go ahead, please.
all right. I'm sorry, my network is not great anymore, so I guess I'm jumping into conversations. So I was just going to mention before Mr. Falade came up to say that the culture. So the comments by such a person may be a reflection of the culture of the organization. Not all organizations will best fit for you. If the culture doesn't suit your kind of person, and if you don't see yourself fitting into that kind of culture, then perhaps that's not an organization that you want to work in. Even when you get the job, you may be very unhappy. So you need to understand the culture of every organization and determine for yourself if that is the kind of organization that you actually want to work in. So you have that option as well, to choose from. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tolu. So an interview is a two-way street. You are assessing them same as they're assessing you, and every organization is not for everyone. So find your best fit. But it's important to know who you are, what are your core values. And I really love that proverb. You said it in English, but I'll say it in Yoruba. And it's really beautiful, but really, you know who you are. Your core values do not change. It's a reflection of who you are, what you stand for, and that must shine through your interview. As a matter of fact, it must shine through every interaction that you have with people. So that's really brilliant. And I love the guide. I wrote that down, EESC. So you talk about your experience, your education experience, skill set, and your character. What do you bring to the table? Okay, I see we have one hand up, just one. So Faye, let's quickly take your question, and then we will round up.
Sorry, Kumbi. Hi.
Oh, wow. Sorry,
We
there
had
was
Timmy's
Timmy.
hand.
Timmy's hand was up before Faye. Sorry?
Yes, Kumbi, just one comment. I'm sharing this from experience so that it doesn't sound theoretical. Sometimes when you stay on your core values, it might cost you. So don't always think that it is one that works in your favor. I had an interview for a very top job, and I was asked a question that had to do with ethics and compliance. And I just stayed true to where I am. I didn't even realize what was going on. So I talked through how I was going to handle things. I talked to what I would do and all of that. And while majority agreed that this was excellent, the people that needed to take decisions because they wanted a candidate who they could manipulate and also get certain things to do, they did not offer me that job. It was the recruiter that told me that. But guess what? I rejoiced that I didn't get it if that was the reason why I didn't get that job. Because if I had gotten the job and had been in the role, what I'll be dealing with will be individuals who are asking me to do things that's just against where I am. I can never be happy in that situation. I won't last. So those are areas where your core value comes into your decision making and into your responses. And you don't need to pull a punch over it, but just be who you are. I might miss that opportunity today, but you don't know how much it has saved me from what would have been a misery in the future. So don't get upset if the consequence of you staying true to your core value is that you are denied that opportunity. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world.
I really like that, sir. I really like that. It may cost you, but know that it's not the end of the world. There's still many more opportunities in your future. Okay, so can we hear from Timmy? I saw Timmy's hand was up before Faye. Let's take it in that order, please. Falade, if you please mute your phone.
Good evening. So my question is, if you prepare for an interview and you have a lot of things that you plan to say, but then when you get to the interview, the questions that the interviewer is asking you aren't as open-ended as you'd like. So you're not able to express yourself fully. For example, like he's asking things about your grades specifically, but you have a lot of extracurricular activities that you could also say. Or they're asking questions like the things that you did in school specifically, or activities you did in school, but you have like church, volunteer work and things like that. So do you try and bring that in as well, or you have to focus exactly on what they say?
Okay, thank you, Timmy. Faye, and these are the last two questions. We're 30 minutes over, and I know that this is an exciting, very interesting, engaging session, but we have to stop at some point. So this is the last question. Faye, go ahead, please.
So it's not a question, but rather like more like adding to what everybody here has said. And I think we Africans, well, I'll speak for Nigerians. We are modest in selling ourselves. Call them all out. Like, and I think that's the cultural difference of working in Nigeria and working abroad now. Call it all out. Like the littlest thing that you think you shouldn't call out, call them out. And for those kids too, who are hoping to apply abroad and everything you've done. And maybe to answer Timmy's question. So if there are things about your grades that you don't feel great about, call out the other ones that you've done. Like, while I have not done this, but I have done this, I have done that, I have volunteered, I have done this. So, I mean, and that's one thing. I know one of my managers had to tell me that you don't sell yourself as much. So it's something I thought I should say here. Please call them the very little thing that you did, even at work, because if you're not careful, your colleagues at work will take glory for what you've done. So call everything out and don't be modest. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. All right, so who wants to take a stab at the question from, I think we've talked about it, but let's, I think we can run it this way. We'll take a last comment from each of the panelists. You can address Timmy's question. Let me start in the order in which we've taken the presentation. We've really gone over time. Okay, so let's start from the last speaker. So we'd like to hear from Mr. Leye Falade first, and then we'll take it in that order back to Mr. Adegbite Falade, if that's okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think about two things I wanted to say that we had not addressed, the four of us, and hasn't come up in the question and answer. One of them is mental preparation. When you're preparing for an interview, please make sure that you're mentally alert, which means not only have you reviewed the subject matter expert, the subject itself, investigated it, understand about the role, done all your preparation, rest well. Rest well before the interview. You might be underestimating how important that is in your ability to be articulate. So mentally, psychologically be prepared. Avoid going in with a disturbed mind. I think the second thing that I will also then say is beyond mental preparation, prepare spiritually too. Spend time to pray about it. The hearts of kings, the hearts of men, they are in God's hand. Let it not be that on that day somebody comes who woke up on the wrong side of the bed and is just irritated by everything that he has been coming across, and I become the victim. Spend time, take time to pray. Before and after, commit it into God's hand. Like we said, there are statistics. Why should it be me? Why should it not be another person? Everybody comes up with a very strong showing. So those two preparations, I just wanted to add to the body of all we have said. Psychologically be prepared, mentally be prepared, but also be prepared as well spiritually. To Timmy's question, you are prepared for the interview, and then you are now being asked to be given examples that are just different from what you had in mind. What should you do? Should you force fit it? And my answer is, please don't force fit it. It backfires. It will actually show that you didn't understand the question. Be open, be honest, like all the speakers have said, about what you are dealing with and the extent to which you are comfortable. One story that speaks to everything that has been said on the aspect of integrity, and integrity is so important. So that's why we're speaking on it, because we sit on it and we see through it. There was a CEO that needed to appoint somebody to take over from him. And there were potential candidates, and all this guy did was to give them beans seed and give.
Well, we can't hear him anymore, or is that my network?
Everybody was doing it.
So we missed the last bit of what you said. Could you please repeat that?
So I said there was this story about the CEO who needed to choose a successor to himself, and there were about 4 or 5 candidates that were in the running, and the only test that he administered to them, he didn't tell them it was a test, was that he gave them bean seed and a pot and asked them to go and plant it, and gave them a period of time that they would come back, and they planted it, they were watering it. And on the final day, when they came back, each person came back, some had their own pots that was big with flowers, some with trees and all of that. But there was this guy that all through the 6-9 months, he didn't see anything. And his wife was even mocking him. He said, well, this is all I have seen. I've watered it, I've planted it. There's nothing that has come out of it. And the story is that as he came in with his pot, not having anything, the other 4 colleagues with their own planting were making fun of him. Said, this guy looks like he didn't even understand anything about agriculture. And when the CEO was going to speak, he went to that guy and said, this is my success. And everybody said, no, he couldn't even plant a seed and bring it to the point where it grows. And the CEO said, for each one of you, I gave dead seed. So all of them had now, the other 4 had taken that seed to another seed and presented it as seed. That was the seed they were given. Integrity, honesty. And in all the comments that you would have asked in the responses, you will continue to see that it plays a role. There's nothing that undermines you, irrespective of your qualification, than a detection that you are not honest in all that you are doing, because we are looking at people that you can commit company resources into their hands, and you can be sure that they will take care of it. A principal aspect of it is your character. So if you don't know it, if it is not one that has come up, or what they are asking is not what you are prepared for, I think Kyei has responded to that, Gite has responded to that. Just take time in accepting the limitation of where you are and make a commitment to come back with what you think should be the rest of the things that you don't have. And I will leave it at that level. Thank you, Kito. Back to you. I mean, thank you, Kumbi. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Falade. Fantastic. Do not lie. I love that. Don't lie. I love that. And Dr. Omolade Falade says, eat well in addition to rest well, and then pray about it. You cannot overemphasize that the power of God in all of this that we do. All right. We'll go to the next person, Kyei, Amoako. Could we hear from you? Final words, final thoughts, please.
Totally. So fun fact, if you ever see a name from Ghana that has K and Y together, it's pronounced with a CH. So it's Kyei. So that's for all of you. But thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation. I made new friends, and I'm going to connect with all of you. Tolu, Bite, Leye. This is not a last. We're definitely I'm going to come to Lagos. I'm going to come to Nigeria because I've made new friends here, and this is great. Thank you for having me. Actually, it was my wife that was invited to participate in a panel, but she was traveling, and she says for me to fill in for her. And now she's even jealous that I get to do it, because she's like, I really wanted to do this. But thank you very much for having me. Also, thank you to Kumbi and your friends at Federal Government, Girls College Alumni Association, because what you're doing by creating these platforms for the younger generation is priceless. I don't know if you get thanked enough, but I want to, on behalf of all of us, say thank you, because these investments will pay off for years. I remember the first person who asked me to do a CV. Every time I go to do a CV, I think about him and I was like, I didn't even know why he asked me to do that, but I know now why he was trying to get me ready for things that he doesn't even know that I'm facing now. So thank you for creating the platform. Thank you for having the summer camp. Thank you for bringing resources to the young people. And I'm going to ask the young people to not stop learning, to not stop being curious. I'm very impressed with the questions that were asked. It reflects young people who are on their way somewhere. And any of the people on this call, I'm sure will take your call any day, anytime, if you need to learn some more things. So take advantage of that. I have one grief with you, Kumbi, when you said, you said Lay is one of you. And I was like, oh, maybe I have to find a way to earn my way in here. Now I've spent enough time here that I think I am an honorary member of the Federal Girls College Alumni Association. I've conferred it on me. Just send me my certificate and then I will be in there. To wrap up, all that we've talked about with interviews, it gets better with practice. It gets better with time. For those of you starting out, you get better with time. Just trust, stick with the process, leverage the people around you, and you will get better with time. My 5 things that I shared, I provided it to Kumbi in a little photo. She will share with everybody, but happy to connect on LinkedIn and happy to chat with you young people if you need anything, but you have great resources. This is a great community, and I am so honored to be a part of you guys.
Thank you so much, Kyei. When you mentioned the names of the people you've connected, you didn't mention my name. So that honorary membership of our alumni is not extended to you because of that, unless you include
because
in the number of people that you.
We have connected already. We've been talking. Yeah. This morning we talked. So you're good. You're good. You're on the VIP list.
Thank you so much. Watch this space. We'll be coming back for this. We'll be coming back for you. And this has been really exciting. We will focus on the adults because we also need a whole lot of this. So I love that. Don't stop learning. Practice, practice makes perfect. Tolu, final words from you.
Final, not so final. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kyei. You're so funny. And it's also nice to meet with Mr. Leye and Mr. Falade. I can see this resemblance, very striking. I know why, but I can see it. So it's a pleasure to meet with you. So on a final note, really, so I'd say that, let me reiterate that interview is a chat for everyone. And I'm telling myself too, because even as adults, we're not there yet. We'd still have interviews probably for a job you want or for something you're bidding for and all of that. It's a chat, and just see it as that so that you can be more comfortable whenever you have a chat. Practice makes perfect. I still speak to the mirror when I have an event, when I have to moderate an event on Zoom at work, and all of that. I talk to myself, I look in the mirror, I speak, I ask myself questions that they may want to ask me and then answer those questions myself. So don't ever keep practicing. Like Kyei said, it makes perfect, and it does make perfect. So keep practicing, and all of that. And I will not also, I think the place of prayer cannot be overemphasized. Believe me, I believe so much in that. And as everyone has said it, I would also reiterate it as well, whenever you're going. So there's a place of comfort where God just assures you that it's going to be okay. And you need to have that whenever you're going for this chat that we're talking about. To touch on Timi's question, and so I'll come from another angle. Sometimes you have an opportunity to add to whatever question you've been asked. So this person has asked you her own question and you've answered it. you could now go the route of, in addition to what you asked, I have done this, I have done that, I have this, I have that. It's an addition. So you've satisfied her inquiry, but you want to give more because you have more and you need to let them know that you have more. So you add that to that. And then, you know, I believe that would clinch whatever question the person has asked you, you know, but sometimes you also need to be able to decipher, how would I call it now? Not ambience, I don't know what to call it, but you should know, you know, you've been in a conversation with someone, you should be able to say, this is how this person is, or this is how I'm sorry, I can't even think of a word to use now.
Body
But the way, body
emotional
language,
intelligence.
yes, yeah, emotional intelligence helps you to understand that, you know. So you understand in a few minutes the kind of person this person is the person a reasonable person? You can meet unreasonable people and tell immediately that these people are unreasonable and there's nothing that you want to tell them that they will take from you. So if there's no need wasting your time, then don't waste your time. But if it's a flexible person, someone that you can see who is already smiling at you, you know, and all of that, just take the opportunity. Don't ever lose any opportunity to sell yourself or to put your best foot forward. So always look for those opportunities. So even while I was talking here, I could see that when I was speaking, probably Susan was smiling. I focused on Susan's face because she was smiling at me. And that gave me some confidence. It made me talk some more, you know, and all of that. So when you're in an interview and there's so many people, look for that person that is, you know, goading you on. Someone that is giving you a small smile at the side of their, you know, lips. You can see that person. So focus more on that person than the person that is frowning, because you don't really need that frown. So, you know, that gives you some more confidence, and then you keep speaking, you know, and all of that. But never lose an opportunity to sell yourself, and look for those tiny opportunities here and there, and, you know, latch onto it. And I wish everyone all the best. I wish all of us all the best, because we still have interviews that we're going to be attending as adults and as children on this call. So it's really nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tolu. I love that. You know, look for those tiny signals. Watch the body language. You know, when you see the positive nods, the affirmations, you know, latch on that, and never forget to sell yourself. Pray, practice, and it's just a chat. At the end of the day, it's a two-way conversation. Brilliant. And last but not the least, Mr. Falade, your final thoughts before we wrap up and call on the president of the association to say a few words.
All right. Let me also echo my deep sense of appreciation and gratitude for the privilege to share thoughts in this community today. Thank you, everybody. I've also learned a lot of things listening into my co-speakers and also reflecting on some of the questions that have come out. Let me say that we are constantly interviewing. And one point, if I think I would like to say, that we probably have not emphasized, is it's important to stay current. Please stay current. Back in those days, we called it current affairs. It's great and it's advantageous to be current about what's going on nationally, in your local community, and internationally. All these things shape your worldview and helps you when you are fielding questions. Young people, please take time to listen to news. Take time to read news magazine, newspapers. Just immerse yourself to understand what's going on around you. They give you an edge when you're speaking. And in addition to that, please, again, we've said it, Tolu has emphasized it, it's a chat. Go with the intention of having fun. Don't put yourself under any bar of pressure. Make up your mind that you're going to have fun. It's okay if you don't get the job, but it's bad if you don't get the job and you are still stressed out at the interview. You shouldn't lose both ways. So make sure that the interview is as enjoyable as you can make it to be. Be all smiles, be all positive, no tension, and just make it an enjoyable experience. And if you can, if you don't get the job, find a way to reach out and ask for feedback. The feedback may be either what you came short on, maybe either the way you fielded questions. Each interview that you go for should not be lost. The value should not be lost. You should be able to take something away from it that helps you with the next interview in case you don't get that one. I've attended interviews that it is my cumulative learnings from some previous interviews that stood me well for the one that I got right. So either way, don't waste the opportunity of that interview. It's either you are getting it or you are getting feedback that helps you with subsequent ones. And I'm sure you guys will be fine. Thank you. Thank you once again. I don't think I need to write an application to be a member of this forum. So, membership number. I will see the secretary afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Falade. I really love that. Yes, you are an honorary member. Every speaker on today's conversation, simply brilliant. I love the bit of get feedback. Everything is a learning experience. Have fun, be relaxed. Double jeopardy, you are stressed if you're at the interview and then you don't get the job. Why? So, be positive, radiate positive energy, and ensure that you do get feedback at the end. Sometimes at the end of the interview, they give you feedback. Sometimes you send them a note and they do respond. Really excellent sharing. Thank you. We've come to the end of the session today. It has been fully engaging, so much information. I have about 4 pages of notes written down, and I'm going to go back into it. And I think that we will share a summary of the learnings today to everyone that has attended, and also the information that Kyei has shared. So thank you so much. Now I'm going to invite the president of our alumni, to Mrs. Susan Oluwole, to say a few words, to share some experiences, and then give the vote of thanks. Susan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kumbi. Thank you. This has been a fantastic, amazing discussion, and I'm so glad it was put together. We've actually gone way overboard our time, but as you can see, there's so many of us still left here wanting to just, end with the program. And so I'm so thankful to all of us that have remained, and especially to our speakers. Thank you so much. It was all put together in not so long a time, particularly for Kyei, who kind of just, was pulled in at the very last minute. Thank you so much. Fantastic name you have. I love it. And thank you for stepping in when Adele couldn't make it. Thank you so much. And Leia, fantastic. I really appreciate that you've had this long haul travel, you and your family, but you've made sure you were part of this. Thank you so much. And to Mr. Adegbite as well, we really appreciate you being here. We know that everybody has busy schedules, but we heard about your passion for youth. And so, we appreciate you being here. Just as a takeaway, I also have a lot of notes that I'm taking away, and Kumbi and I would share notes afterwards and also share to others. But just 2 experiences I've had. My son had to do an interview for an A-level school after COVID, and so it was online. And, he was applying for a sports scholarship as well. He plays football, and so during the interview for the sports scholarship, we were going on, and he was saying all the matches he had played and what wing he plays and all of that. And then I just remembered, because I was right there beside him, I just remembered to chip in that he also plays the violin. And you should have seen how lit up, the expressions of the interviewers were when they realized that a footballer that likes to play football also can play the violin and has some qualifications and certificates in that sphere. And, it was like, oh, very interesting. Somebody who's sporty, but also plays music, So please, as a takeaway for our youth, sell yourself, as we've heard throughout this conversation. It's very important. The second one is don't tell lies, right? And I remember my first interview, just straight out of university. I applied to a bank. I'm from a law background. I'd studied law. So I knew I wasn't taking it very seriously, because I just thought it would be numbers, and I'm not very good with numbers and all of that, But you know, I persevered, and at the end of the day, we were just 2 left, and they had to have something to separate us. I mean, to take somebody, and they asked, the HR lady asked, what do you do in your spare time? And luckily, I like to read. And I said, oh, I like to read, and I've read books. I like to read a lot of books. And she said, what interesting book have you read? Obviously, I read all the, at that time, romance books and things like that. So I wanted to impress. And I said, I've read the history of England, right? I wasn't telling a lie, because my dad had it in his book collection. I'm out of boredom and not having anything to do. I'd read it at one point. And then she started engaging me very seriously on the book. I just thought I would mention the name and move on and impress her. But thank God that it wasn't a lie. I had read about it. I talked about, she asked me what is the history? So I had to tell her about the Celtics and all of that, and I was so amazed that somebody would actually take me up on it. I had even called it the Celtics, and she corrected me and said, no, it's called the Celtics. I can never, ever forget that, so please don't tell lies. Make sure you live an interesting life. And just to round up, I will just go through, the points that I took from each one. Interviews, stay current. Even if as adults for us, even if you are not going for an interview, you will get into company cocktails, company dinners, and you will have to talk with different people. If you don't know things that are current, if you don't know about what is happening and different interests, the weather, the culture of where you are, then you're not going to be able to sell yourself or speak to that person. So not just for the youth, but for us adults, stay current, have a wide variety of knowledge over different things. Treat interviews as chats, maybe slightly formal, but they are chats still. And obviously, as Adegbite said, there are no trick questions. Stay current stay true to yourself. And then Tolu said, sell yourself, do not tell lies, as I said. Observe etiquette and be bold, but not fierce. There's a distinction. Be bold, but there's a thin line, but learn that thin line. And then Mr. Kyei says, interview is a two-way conversation. Listen as well as speak. Mind your brand for the youth, particularly. What you put on social media stays there forever, and anybody can go and check. So make sure you're mindful of what you put there. Mr. Leia says, exude confidence, be audible, be articulate, prepare. I like that. He says, preparing for an interview is a way of life. So, all this volunteering work and all this, read different types of books, be current and all of that, it is not 1 week before the interview that you do it. You have to have started way before. So let it be a way of life. Have different interests. Be open to trying different things so that when that opportunity comes, and it always comes, you will have something to say, that is beyond your academic work, right? So it's been fantastic. I just thank you so much for this. And as Kumbi said, we will be calling you back. Kyei, you didn't mention my name, so that honorary admission is still on one leg. But thank you so much, Mr. Leye Falade. Thank you, Mr. Adegbite Falade. Thank you, Mr. Kyei, Amoako, and thank you to our wonderful family sister, Tolu Uwadia. Thank you so much, everybody. And of course, thank you, Kumbi. You've been fantastic, as usual. And to our children, to our wards, and to, just to everyone, share with your friends as well, and keep at it. You will get there. You will make it. Tayo, you will get that fantastic job that you're looking out for as a lawyer. Just persevere and, pray, as we've all heard. And Kiton is going to be reaching out to Kyei for his personal statement very soon, I'm sure. So thank you so much, and God bless you all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you,
everyone, our speakers. We love and appreciate you. And thank you to everyone. We had almost 50 people on the call, which is what I said to you, Kyei. 28 registered participants, but I anticipated that we'd have about 50 people. Thank you, everyone. Let's have a fantastic evening, and God bless. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.